The silence in the ballroom was louder than a scream. 500 of New York's elite froze as the crimson liquid dripped from Lakota's chin, staining her white silk blouse like a fresh wound. Victoria Sterling, the matriarch of high society, stood holding the empty glass, a sneer painted on her face. She thought she had just put a penniless gold digger in her place. She had no idea that the woman standing before her, wiping wine from her eyes, was the anonymous buyer behind Project Helios, the sole entity capable of saving Victoria's crumbling empire. In 30 seconds, Victoria didn't just ruin a dress, she incinerated an $800 million lifeline. And the best part, she handed the match to the one woman she underestimated. The chandeliers inside the grand ballroom of the Pierre Hotel didn't just sparkle, they judged. Or at least that's how it felt to anyone who wasn't born with a trust fund attached to their umbilical cord. Lakota Vance stood near the periphery of the room, clutching a glass of sparkling water. She wore a simple, elegant cream blouse and black trousers, an outfit that screamed staff or assistant to the billionaires surrounding her, but understated power to anyone who actually knew business. But nobody here knew business. They knew inheritance. "Straighten your back, Lakota. You look like you're waiting for a bus." The voice was ice and velvet. Lakota didn't need to turn around to know it was Victoria Sterling, her mother-in-law, the woman who had worn black to Lakota's wedding 2 years ago and spent the reception telling guests that Liam, her son, was going through a charitable phase. "Good evening, Victoria," Lakota said, turning with a practiced, polite smile. "The gala looks beautiful. You've outdone yourself." Victoria was a vision in emerald taffeta, dripping in diamonds that probably cost more than the GDP of a small island nation. She looked at Lakota, not with hatred, but with something far worse, boredom. "It's not just a gala, Lakota. It is a strategic battlefield." Victoria snapped, scanning the room over Lakota's shoulder. "But I wouldn't expect you to understand the nuances of high finance. Where is Liam? I need him to meet with the representatives from the Helios Group. If we don't close this merger tonight, the Sterling legacy is vulnerable." Lakota took a sip of water to hide the smirk tugging at the corner of her lips. Vulnerable was an understatement. Lakota knew for a fact, because she had read the due diligence reports on her encrypted tablet that very morning, that Sterling Enterprises was hemorrhaging cash. They were over-leveraged in commercial real estate and desperate for a buyout. "Liam is at the bar getting a scotch," Lakota said softly. "And regarding the Helios Group, I heard they are very particular about leadership ethics." Victoria laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "Ethics, oh, you sweet, naive girl. This is business. They care about margins and assets. I have the assets. I just need to charm the mysterious CEO, whoever he is. Rumor has it he's a recluse, probably some tech shut-in from Silicon Valley." "Or she," Lakota corrected gently. Victoria rolled her eyes. "Don't start with your feminist rhetoric tonight, Lakota. I have $800 million on the line. I need Liam to look like a successor, not the husband of a freelancer." Victoria said the word freelancer like it was a contagious disease. Lakota was a graphic designer on paper. It was the perfect cover. It explained why she was always on her computer, why she had flexible hours, and why she didn't wear designer labels. In reality, Lakota Vance was the founder of EV Capital, a private equity firm that had quietly acquired major stakes in logistics tech and now aimed to acquire distressed luxury brands. Like Sterling Enterprises, "I'm sure the deal will go exactly as you deserve, Victoria." Lakota said, her voice laced with a double meaning that flew right over the older woman's perfectly coiffed head. "Just stay out of the way," Victoria hissed, leaning in close. "When the Helios board members arrive, Mr. Blackwood and Mr. Thorne do not speak to them. Go hide in the kitchen if you must. I cannot have you embarrassing us with your lack of pedigree." Lakota watched Victoria sweep away toward a group of elderly men in tuxedos. "She's in rare form tonight," a deep voice whispered in Lakota's ear. Liam slipped an arm around her waist, kissing her temple. He looked tired. Being the son of Victoria Sterling was a full-time job with no benefits. "She's stressed," Lakota said, leaning into him. "The company is in trouble, Liam." "I know," Liam sighed. "She won't listen to me. She thinks she can bully her way out of debt. She's pinning everything on this Helios deal. Do you think they'll bite?" Lakota looked up at her husband. He was good-kind and completely unaware that he was sleeping with the shark circling his mother's boat. He knew she made good money investing, but he had no concept of the scale. She had planned to tell him tonight, after the deal was signed, to save him from the fallout of his mother's inevitable collapse. "I think," Lakota said carefully, "that the Helios Group is looking for a change in management. If Victoria can't prove she can adapt, they might walk away." "She'll never adapt," Liam said, taking a heavy drink of his scotch. "She'd rather burn the building down than admit she's not the queen of the ashes." Across the room, the double doors opened. The room went quiet. 2 men entered. One was Julian Blackwood, a sharp-jawed attorney known as the Grim Reaper of Wall Street. The other was Marcus Thorne, the public face of EV Capital's acquisitions. Victoria Sterling straightened her necklace, pasted on a dazzling smile, and marched toward them. The hunt was on. Lakota set her water glass down. "I'm going to go freshen up," Lakota told Liam. "Hurry back," he said. "If she starts yelling at the waiters, I'm going to need backup." Lakota walked toward the VIP area, but she wasn't going to the restroom. She was going to intercept Marcus Thorne. It was time to set the stage. The VIP section was roped off with red velvet guarded by security, who knew better than to stop Victoria Sterling, but who hesitated when Lakota approached. "I'm with the family," Lakota said, calmly, flashing a generic wristband. She slipped past them, just as Victoria was cornering Marcus Thorne near a display of ice sculptures. Marcus, a man who had negotiated billion-dollar treaties, looked like he was desperately searching for an exit. "So you see, Mr. Thorne Sterling Enterprises is not just a brand. It is a lifestyle," Victoria was saying, gesturing wildly with a glass of 1982 Chateau Margaux. "We don't need oversight. We need capital. I assume your boss, this mysterious CEO, understands that I will remain in full operational control." Marcus Thorne cleared his throat. He spotted Lakota approaching from the shadows of a pillar. His eyes widened slightly, a micro-expression of recognition, but he quickly masked it. He knew the protocol. Lakota is a ghost until she chooses to manifest. "Mrs. Sterling," Marcus said, his voice smooth. "The CEO of EV Capital is very hands-on. The terms of the acquisition would require a restructuring of the board, specifically the removal of legacy management that has underperformed." Victoria's face went pale, then red. "Legacy management? Are you referring to me?" "We look at the numbers, ma'am. The numbers say the brand is stagnant." "The numbers are wrong," Victoria snapped, her voice rising. Heads turned. The ambient chatter of the gala began to dim as the elites scented blood in the water. "I built this company from my late husband's ashes. I will not be lectured by a proxy." Lakota stepped into the light. "Victoria, perhaps we should discuss this in private." Victoria whipped around, her eyes blazing with misplaced fury. She needed a target, someone safe to abuse someone who couldn't fight back. Lakota was the perfect victim. "You," Victoria snarled. "I told you to stay away. What are you doing here, trying to eavesdrop so you can sell gossip to the tabloids? Is my son's allowance not enough for you?" "I'm trying to help you," Lakota said, her voice steady. though her heart pounded. Mr. Thorne is trying to tell you that the deal depends on your willingness to step down. If you make a scene, you kill the deal. Step down, Victoria laughed high and shrill. For who, Liam, he's too soft. He married you, didn't he? That proves his judgment is flawed. Victoria took a step closer to Lakota, invading her personal space. The smell of expensive wine and desperate fear radiated off her. You have been a stain on this family since the day you arrived. Victoria spat loud enough for the circle of onlookers to hear. Walking around with your department store clothes and your pathetic little graphic design job. You think you're one of us? You are a parasite, Lakota. A nobody. Victoria, stop. Liam's voice cut through the crowd. He was pushing his way through, looking horrified. Mother, that's enough. It is not enough, Victoria screamed. She turned back to Marcus Thorne. You want to know why this company is struggling? It's distractions. Like her, I have to carry the weight of everyone. Mrs. Sterling, Marcus said coldly, I strongly suggest you lower your voice. Don't tell me what to do, Victoria shrieked. She looked at Lakota, whose calm expression seemed to infuriate her more than any insult could. Why are you looking at me like that? Do you think you're better than me? I think you're making a mistake, Lakota said quietly. The only mistake, Victoria said, her hand trembling, was letting you into this building. And then it happened. In a moment of theatrical rage, Victoria raised her glass of the 800-a-bottle red wine. With a flick of her wrist, she didn't just spill it. She launched the liquid. A dark crimson arc splashed across Lakota's face, soaking her hair, dripping down her nose, and ruining the cream silk blouse. The room gasped. It was a collective intake of breath from 500 people. The music stopped. The silence was absolute. Lakota stood frozen. The wine burned her eyes. She could feel the cold liquid seeping into her skin. Victoria stood panting, the empty glass still in her hand. For a second, she looked triumphant. Then she looked at Marcus Thorne. Marcus wasn't looking at Victoria. He was looking at Lakota, and he wasn't looking at her with pity. He was looking at her with deferential fear. Marcus Thorne stepped forward, bypassing Victoria completely. He pulled a pristine white handkerchief from his pocket and extended it to Lakota. Ma'am, Marcus said, his voice ringing clear in the silent ballroom. Are you all right? Victoria blinked. Ma'am, why are you calling the help, ma'am? Lakota took the handkerchief. She wiped her eyes slowly. When she lowered the cloth, the kindness was gone from her face. The daughter-in-law was gone. The CEO had arrived. Lakota looked at Marcus. Cancel the wire transfer, Marcus. Yes, ma'am, Marcus replied, instantly pulling out his phone. Victoria frowned, confusion warring with her anger. Wire transfer? What wire transfer? What is going on? Lakota stepped forward, her wine-stained clothes suddenly looking like the armor of a war-torn general. She ignored the wine dripping from her chin. She looked Victoria dead in the eye. The $800 million wire transfer to save Sterling Enterprises. Lakota, said her voice projecting to the back of the room. I'm cancelling it. Victoria scoffed, a nervous, jittery sound. You can't cancel anything. You're nobody. Mr. Thorne, tell her to stop this charade. Marcus Thorne looked up from his phone. It's done. The deal is dead. He looked at Victoria. You don't seem to understand, Mrs. Sterling. We don't negotiate with people who assault our chairman. Victoria froze. Chairman, Marcus gestured to Lakota. May I introduce Lakota Vance, founder and majority shareholder of EV Capital, and until 30 seconds ago, the owner of the company that was about to save your life. The glass slipped from Victoria's fingers and shattered on the floor. The silence that had befallen the Pierre Hotel ballroom was shattered not by a scream, but by the frantic clicking of camera shutters. The press, previously relegated to the back of the room, smelled the story of the decade. The Victoria Sterling humiliating the secret savior of her own empire. Victoria stared at the shattered glass at her feet, then up at Lakota. Her brain was misfiring, unable to bridge the gap between the freelancer daughter-in-law she despised and the financial titan standing before her. "This is ridiculous." Victoria stammered, her laugh sounding brittle and manic. "Is this some kind of sick joke, Liam? Did you put her up to this, hiring actors to embarrass your mother?" She pointed a shaking finger at Marcus Thorne. "I know who you are, Mr. Thorne. You are a respectable businessman. Why are you playing along with this peasant's delusion?" Marcus Thorne didn't blink. He reached into his briefcase held by an assistant who had materialized beside him and pulled out a thick document bound in navy blue leather. "This is the acquisition contract, Mrs. Sterling." Marcus said, his voice projecting easily. "Page 1. Buyer entity EV Capital. Managing partner and sole proprietor, Lakota Vance." He flipped the document open and held it up. There in bold print was Lakota's signature, sharp, angular, and undeniable. Victoria squinted at the paper. The color drained from her face, leaving her looking haggard and old under the harsh ballroom lights. "No," she whispered. "That's impossible. You design logos. You drive a Honda." "I drive a Honda because I like it," Lakota said, her voice calm, but cutting through the air like a knife. She wiped a stray drop of wine from her cheek. "And I design logos because it relaxes me. But my day job is buying distressed companies run by incompetent narcissists and turning them profitable. I've spent the last 6 months analyzing Sterling Enterprises. I know about the cooked books in the Singapore division. I know about the loans you took out against the employee pension fund." A gasp rippled through the crowd. That was illegal. That was prison time. Victoria took a stumbling step back. You spied on me." "I performed due diligence," Lakota corrected. "I was willing to overlook the mismanagement. I was willing to bail you out, pay off the debts, and let you retire with dignity in the Hamptons. I was doing it for Liam, because he loves you, God knows why." Lakota took a step forward, and for the first time, Victoria Sterling looked small. "But you just reminded me of the golden rule of business, Victoria, never invest in a liability. And you," Lakota gestured to the wine stain on her chest, "are a liability." Liam, who had been standing in stunned silence, finally moved. He looked from his mother to his wife. His eyes were wide, processing the deception, the secret wealth, and the overwhelming reality of the situation. But when he looked at the wine, dripping off Lakota's clothes, his confusion hardened into resolve. He took off his tuxedo jacket and draped it over Lakota's shoulders, covering the stain. "Liam," Victoria cried out, sensing her ally slipping away. "She lied to us. She lied to you. She's been sitting on a fortune while we struggled. She's a snake." Liam turned to his mother. His face was a mask of cold disappointment. "She didn't pour wine on you, Mother. You did that. You did this." "I am your mother. I built this life for you." "You built a cage," Liam said quietly, "and you just locked yourself inside it." Liam wrapped his arm around Lakota. "Let's go." "You walk out that door with her," Victoria shrieked, her voice cracking, "and you are cut off. Do you hear me? Not a penny. You will be destitute." Lakota paused. She turned back one last time, a faint, pitying smile on her lips. "Victoria," Lakota said softly, "I bought the bank that holds your mortgage last week. I don't think you're in a position to cut anyone off." With that, Lakota and Liam turned and walked toward the exit, The crowd parted like the Red Sea. As they reached the double doors, Marcus Thorne fell into step behind them, flanked by 4 security guards. Behind them, the sound of Victoria Sterling screaming orders that nobody obeyed echoed in the vast, expensive hall. She was alone, in a room full of people, drowning on dry land. The morning sun hit the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse suite at the Mandarin Oriental. It wasn't their apartment Lakota had felt they couldn't go back to their modest 2-bedroom in Brooklyn, not with the press camped outside. Lakota sat on the edge of the king-sized bed, wearing a plush hotel robe. Her hair was washed, the smell of expensive wine finally gone, but the tension remained. Liam was standing on the balcony, staring out at Central Park. He had been there for an hour, holding a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. Lakota stood up and walked to the glass door. She hesitated, then slid it open. The city noise drifted up, sirens honking the heartbeat of New York. "Liam?" she asked softly. He didn't turn around immediately. "I Googled you," he said. His voice was flat. "Lakota Vance, net worth estimated at $1.2 billion. Forbes 30 Under 30's list 3 years ago under a pseudonym. You own everything. The logistics company, my friend, works for yours. The app I use to track my running yours." He turned around. His eyes weren't angry, but they were hurt. 2 years, Lakota. We ate instant noodles when the heater broke because we were saving money. We argued about whether we could afford a vacation to Jersey. Why? Lakota sighed, wrapping her arms around herself. This was the conversation she had feared more than Victoria's wrath. "Because of my father," she said. Liam frowned. "You said your father was a mechanic." "He was. But he won the lottery when I was 12. $70 million. Lakota leaned against the doorframe. "It ruined us. My cousins sued us. My friends started stealing from me. Dad drank himself to death within 5 years because everyone he loved turned into a leech. I saw what money did to people. I saw how it changed how they looked at you." She stepped closer to Liam, reaching for his hand. He didn't pull away, but he didn't squeeze back yet. "When I met you at that coffee shop," she whispered, "you didn't know who I was. You bought me a muffin because I looked sad. You liked me. Not the money, not the power, just Lakota. I was so terrified that if I told you I'd lose that, I wanted to be sure that we were real." Liam looked at her, searching her face. "And the deal saving my mother. I tried to do it anonymously," Lakota said. "I set up the shell company. I was going to buy it, fix it, and let her think she was a genius. I just wanted you to be free of her stress. But she poured wine on you," Liam finished. A small, dry chuckle escaped him. "God, she's a monster." "She is," Lakota agreed. "But she's your mother. If you want me to go back, if you want me to sign the deal, I will. For you." Liam looked at her. Really looked at her. He saw the woman who had nursed him through the flu. The woman who laughed at his bad jokes. The woman who was currently willing to burn $800 million to save a woman who hated her. "No," Liam said firmly. He squeezed her hand. "Don't sign it. She needs to learn. But we need to talk about the instant noodles thing. No more lying. Full transparency," Lakota promised. "Starting now." Her phone buzzed on the table inside. Then it buzzed again. And again. It was a relentless stream of notifications. Lakota walked back inside and picked it up. "It started," she said. "What us?" The fallout. Lakota swiped the screen to mirror it onto the large TV in the suite. The news was on CNBC. The headline flashed in red, "Sterling Enterprises, stock plummets 40% after merger collapse." The anchor was speaking rapidly. Insiders report a disastrous scene at the Pierre Hotel last night involving CEO Victoria Sterling and a potential investor. Creditors are reportedly calling in loans this morning. Bankruptcy could be filed as early as noon. "She's done," Liam said, watching the screen. "Not yet," Lakota said, her eyes narrowing. She pointed to a ticker at the bottom of the screen. "Look who just entered the building." On the screen, live footage showed the entrance of the Sterling Tower. A black limousine had pulled up. A man stepped out, tall, silver-haired, wearing a pinstripe suit that cost more than a car. He had a shark-like smile that made the camera lens seem to crack. "Who is that?" Liam asked. "Charles Vane." Lakota said, her voice dropping an octave. "The most ruthless corporate litigator in New York. He doesn't save companies. He strips them for parts and sues the people who tried to help. Why is he there? Because Victoria called him." Lakota said, realizing the game had just changed. "She's not going to apologize, Liam. She's going to sue me. She's going to claim I acted in bad faith to sabotage the company." As if on cue, Lakota's phone rang. It wasn't a number she recognized. She put it on speaker. "This is Lakota Vance." "Ms. Vance?" A smooth, oily voice purred. It was Charles Vane. "And Mr. Sterling, I assume you are listening. Good. I represent your mother, Victoria Sterling. We are preparing a lawsuit alleging corporate espionage, breach of verbal contract, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We are seeking $1.5 billion in damages." "You have no case, Charles," Lakota said, her voice icy. "There was no signed contract, and the assault was witnessed by 500 people." "Oh, the wine." Charles Vane laughed. "We have witnesses who are prepared to testify that you provoked her, that you threw the wine on yourself to frame her. Perception is reality, Ms. Vance. And unless you want your face dragged through the mud and your precious private equity firm investigated by the DOJ, I suggest you come to the office. Victoria is willing to settle." "Settle?" Liam asked, leaning into the phone. "What does she want?" "She wants the deal signed," Vane said, "at full price, plus a formal public apology from Ms. Vance. And she wants you, Liam, to return home. Alone." Liam looked at Lakota. The anger in his eyes was gone, replaced by a cold fury that matched his wife's. "Tell my mother," Liam said into the phone, "that we'll see her in court." He hung up. Lakota looked at him impressed. "You know Vane is dangerous. He plays dirty." "So do we," Liam said. He walked over to the closet where the hotel had delivered some new clothes for them. "You own the bank, right? The one holding her mortgage?" "Yes." Lakota smiled, a wicked glint in her eye. "Then let's go pay the tenant a visit," Liam said. "It's time for an eviction notice." But they underestimated Victoria. She wasn't just relying on lawyers. As Lakota and Liam prepared to leave the hotel, a notification popped up on Lakota's phone. It was a live stream from inside the Sterling mansion. Victoria was sitting in her library, tears streaming down her face, likely fake, talking to a camera. "My son has been brainwashed," Victoria sobbed to her millions of social media followers. "This woman, this predator, she deceived us all. She stole my company's secrets, and now she's holding my boy hostage. I am a mother fighting for her child." The comments section was scrolling by at light speed. "Save Liam, boycott EV Capital. Your mother knows best. She's turning the public against you," Liam said, horrified. Lakota grabbed her coat. "She wants a war. She's going to get a revolution. Call Marcus. Tell him to release the security tapes." "Which tapes?" "The ones from the house," Lakota said grimly. "The ones from last Christmas. The ones where she admits to the tax fraud. If she wants to play the victim, let's show the world the real villain." The battle for public opinion had begun, and the Sterling name was the battlefield. The lobby of EV Capital was a fortress of glass and steel in lower Manhattan, a stark contrast to the crumbling, gilded decay of Sterling Enterprises. But even the bulletproof glass seemed fragile against the mob outside. Gold digger, home wrecker, give Liam back. Lakota watched the scene from the back seat of her armored SUV as it pulled into the underground garage. The crowd, fueled by Victoria's tearful Instagram live stream, was baying for blood. Victoria had spun a narrative so compelling that even Lakota was impressed by the sheer audacity of it, the poor, widowed matriarch defending her legacy against a predatory, lying hedge fund manager who had seduced her son. "She's good," Lakota murmured, stepping out of the car as security shielded her. "She's a sociopath," Liam corrected, walking beside her. He looked exhausted, but the resolve in his jaw hadn't wavered. He was wearing a suit Lakota had bought him that morning, bespoke sharp, fitting the role of a billionaire's husband he was only just beginning to understand. They took the private elevator to the 40th floor. When the doors opened, the atmosphere was electric. Dozens of analysts were glued to screens monitoring the PR disaster. Marcus Thorne met them at the entrance to the boardroom. He looked grim. "It's bad, Lakota," Marcus said without preamble. "Stock in EV Capital is down 4% just on reputation damage. Our partners in Tokyo are asking questions. Victoria's lawyer Vane just filed an emergency injunction to freeze your personal assets pending the lawsuit. He's claiming you used insider information gained through marriage to sabotage Sterling Enterprises." "Can he do that?" Liam asked, alarmed. "He can try," Lakota said, walking into her office and throwing her coat on a chair. "He's trying to starve us out. He thinks if he freezes my accounts, I can't fight the legal battle." Lakota sat behind her desk, a massive slab of black marble. For the first time, Liam saw her fully in her element. She wasn't the wife clipping coupons. She was a general at war. "Marcus, what's the status on the Sterling debt?" Lakota asked. "We own 60% of their commercial loans," Marcus replied, pulling up a holographic chart. "But there's a problem. Vane found a loophole. There's a grace period clause. We can't foreclose for another 48 hours. In that time, Victoria is planning to sell off the company's crown jewel, the European division, to a rival firm to get quick cash. If she does that, she pays off the debt, keeps control, and sues us into oblivion." Lakota tapped a pen against the desk. "She's selling Europe. That's the only profitable part of the company. She's gutting the business to save her own skin." "She doesn't care about the business," Liam said quietly, staring at a photo of his father on the wall, a photo Lakota had seemingly kept for years. "She cares about the title. She'd be queen of a graveyard rather than a commoner." Lakota looked at Liam. "You mentioned the Christmas tapes earlier. Are you sure you want to do this? Once we release them, there's no going back. It will destroy her reputation permanently." Liam closed his eyes. He remembered that Christmas 2 years ago, the argument he had overheard in the study, the reason he had distanced himself from the family business in the first place. "She forged my father's will." "Lakota!" Liam said, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. "I never told you the full story. I heard her admitting it to her accountant. Dad didn't leave the company to her. He left it to me. She changed the documents. She stole my birthright and then treated me like an employee in my own house." The room went silent. Marcus looked up from his tablet. "If we can prove that—" Marcus said, "It's not a lawsuit. It's a criminal case. Fraud, forgery, grand larceny." "I have the audio," Lakota said. She pulled a small encrypted flash drive from her safe. "I recorded it. I was in the hallway waiting for you, Liam. I've had this for 2 years. I never used it because I didn't want to send your mother to prison. I wanted to buy the company and hand it back to you legally. Play it, Liam said. Lakota plugged the drive in. Victoria's voice filled the room clear and sharp. I don't care what Arthur wanted. Liam is too soft. He'll give the profits to charity. Change the beneficiary page. Make me the sole executor. If anyone asks, Arthur was not of sound mind when he wrote the original draft. Then the accountant's voice. But Victoria, this is a felony. Victoria's laugh echoed. It's only a felony if you get caught. And who's going to catch me? My son. He's too busy dating that barista trash to notice he's been robbed. Liam's face was stone. The barista trash comment hung in the air. Release it, Liam said. Post it everywhere. Send it to the DOJ. Send it to the news. Not yet, Lakota said, her eyes narrowing. A plan was forming, a plan far more devastating than a simple leak. If we leak it now, Vane will claim it's a deep fake AI fabrication. He'll muddy the waters. We need her to admit it. We need a confession. She'll never confess, Marcus argued. She will, Lakota said, standing up. If she thinks she's winning. Victoria is a narcissist. She can't help but gloat when she thinks she has the upper hand. Lakota turned to Marcus. Let the sale of the European division proceed. In fact, have our shell company in Zurich put in a bid. Make her think she's about to get the money. And then, Lakota smiled. We go to the signing ceremony, and we wear a wire. The signing ceremony was scheduled for the following evening at the Sterling Tower penthouse. Victoria had moved fast, desperate to secure the funds before the 48-hour grace period on her loans expired. She had invited the press, of course. She wanted the world to see her victory. She wanted to show that Sterling Enterprises was still strong and that she had outsmarted the evil Lakota Vance. The room was packed. Champagne flowed. Victoria stood at the head of a long mahogany table, looking radiant in red. Beside her sat Charles Vane, looking like a viper in a silk tie. Lakota and Liam walked in. The room went quiet. Security guards stepped forward, but Charles Vane held up a hand. Let them in, Vane smirked. Let them watch. Victoria laughed, swirling her glass. Well, well, the prodigal son and his sugar mama. Did you come to beg for forgiveness, or did you come to see what real business looks like? We came to wish you luck, Lakota said, her voice projecting calmly. She wore a black dress, severe and sharp. She looked like a judge. Selling the European division is a bold move, Victoria. It's the only thing keeping the stock price above zero. It's a strategic realignment, Victoria scoffed. She gestured to the buyers across the table, men in grey suits who were unbeknownst to her agents of Lakota's Zurich subsidiary. With this influx of cash, I will pay off your predatory loans, and I will sue you for every penny you have. I will own EV Capital by the time I'm done. Is that how you plan to get the money? Liam asked, stepping forward. By stealing it, like you stole the company from Dad. The cameras were rolling. The press leaned in. Victoria's eyes flashed. She motioned for the cameras to cut, but they didn't. She didn't care. She felt untouchable. Oh, grow up, Liam, Victoria hissed, lowering her voice, so only those near the table could hear, or so she thought. Your father was a fool. He would have run this company into the ground with his ethics. I did what had to be done to save the family name. I took control, because I am the only one strong enough to wield it. So you admit you forged the will? Lakota asked loudly. I admit I did what was necessary. Victoria snapped, her ego taking the bait. And there is nothing you can do about it. The statute of limitations on contesting the will has passed. I won. You lost. Now get out of my building before I have you thrown out. She turned to the buyers. Gentlemen, shall we sign? The lead buyer, a man named Mr. Silver, looked at the papers. Then he looked at Victoria. Then he looked at Lakota. Actually, Mr. Silver said, closing the folder, I don't think we will be signing. Victoria froze. What? Why, the terms are agreed. Because Mr. Silver said, standing up, my employer has instructed me to withdraw the offer. Your employer, who is your employer? Victoria demanded. Mr. Silver gestured to Lakota. Victoria whipped around. You're the buyer. I am, Lakota said, and I'm withdrawing the bid. Which means, Victoria, you have no cash flow. You have no white knight. Lakota checked her watch. And according to my records, the 48-hour grace period on your loans expired 2 minutes ago. Charles Vane stood up, his face pale. Now wait a minute, Miss Vance. We can negotiate. No negotiation, Lakota said. She pulled out her phone and pressed a single button. Suddenly the lights in the building flickered. The smart screens on the walls which displayed the Sterling logo glitched and went black. Then a new logo appeared, EV Capital. What is happening? Victoria shrieked. I just executed the foreclosure clause, Lakota said. As the primary creditor, and due to your default, I have seized the assets of Sterling Enterprises effective immediately. This building is now mine. The security staff works for me. The champagne you're drinking, I paid for it. Lakota signaled to the head of security, a man who had worked for Victoria for 10 years, a man Victoria had berated and underpaid for a decade. Mr. Henderson, Lakota said, please escort the trespassers off the premises. Mr. Henderson smiled. It was a genuine smile. He walked over to Victoria. Mrs. Sterling, Henderson said, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You can't touch me. I own this city. Victoria screamed, backing away. She looked at Charles Vane. Do something. Vane was already packing his briefcase. I'm afraid, Victoria, that my retainer requires a solvent client, and since you just lost your company, I resign. Vane walked out, leaving her alone. Liam, Victoria cried, reaching out to her son. Liam, please, you can't let her do this to your mother. Liam looked at her. He saw the woman who had manipulated him, lied to him, and stolen his father's legacy. I'm not doing this to you, Mother, Liam said. You did it to yourself. And by the way, that barista trash you talked about, she just outsmarted you without raising her voice. Liam turned his back on her. Henderson and 2 other guards gently but firmly took Victoria by the arms. As they led her toward the elevators, she wasn't the queen of society anymore. She was just a screaming woman in a red dress being evicted from a kingdom she stole. Lakota stood at the head of the table. She looked at the press, who were stunned into silence. The show is over, Lakota said. Please clear the room. We have a company to rebuild. 6 months is a long time in the world of high finance. In 6 months, fortunes can be made, governments can topple, and names that were once etched in stone can be washed away like chalk in the rain. The Sterling Tower, once a monolith of black marble and intimidation that loomed over midtown Manhattan, had undergone a soul transplant. The heavy light-sucking drapes in the lobby were gone, replaced by floor-to-ceiling smart glass that flooded the atrium with natural light. The golden S that had adorned the floor, a symbol people were once forced to walk around, had been removed. In its place was a modern collaborative workspace filled with greenery. It was no longer the Sterling Tower. It was the Vance Sterling Center for Innovation. Lakota Vance sat in what used to be Victoria's office. The layout was unrecognizable. Victoria's desk, a monstrosity of mahogany that sat on a raised platform to make her look taller than her guests, was gone. Lakota worked at a sleek, modest table near the window, surrounded by her team. The Q3 projections are in Lakota, Marcus Thorne said, projecting a hologram onto the glass wall. Since we liquidated the toxic assets in the luxury division and pivoted to sustainable tech revenue, is up 210%. The stock price has tripled since the red wine incident. Lakota smiled, taking a sip of coffee from a mug that said, "World's okayest boss, a joke gift from an intern, something Victoria would have fired someone for." "And employee retention?" Lakota asked. "Highest in the industry," Marcus replied, scrolling through the data. "People actually like coming to work when they aren't terrified of being screamed at for breathing too loudly. Oh, and we just secured the contract for the municipal clean energy grid. The mayor wants to do a photo op with you." "Schedule it," Lakota said, standing up and walking to the window. "But make sure Liam is in the photo. He's the one who spearheaded the proposal." "He's in the South Bronx right now," Marcus noted, "overseeing the new community center. You know, for a guy who grew up with a silver spoon, he's surprisingly good at getting his hands dirty." "He didn't grow up with a spoon," Lakota corrected, softly looking out at the city. "He grew up with a shackle. He's just finally free to run." The intercom buzzed. It was the receptionist. "Miss Vance Security has flagged a voicemail on the main line. It's from a blocked number, but the voice matches the restricted profile." Lakota stiffened. She didn't need to ask who it was. "Play it." The room went silent as Victoria Sterling's voice, crackly and slightly slurred, filled the modern office. "Tell her I need to speak to her. It's urgent. The allowance isn't enough. The heating bill in this godforsaken apartment is criminal. I am Victoria Sterling. I shouldn't be worrying about the price of oil. Liam won't answer my calls. Tell him his mother is freezing. Tell him—" The message cut off. The time limit had expired. Marcus looked at Lakota, his expression hard. "She's lying, you know. The stipend we set up is more than generous. It's $8,000 a month. Most families live on half that. She just doesn't know how to live without a staff of 20. "I know," Lakota said, her voice devoid of pity, but heavy with fatigue. "Don't respond. If she has a genuine emergency, the lawyers will handle it. If we engage, she wins." "She's trying to get into the gala tonight," Marcus warned. "We've had reports that she's been calling former associates, begging for a +1. "Let her try," Lakota said, turning back to the window. "The guest list is biometric. Ghosts don't show up on scanners." The gala that evening was the event of the season held at the Pierre Hotel. It was a poetic choice. This was the scene of the crime, the very room where half a year ago Victoria had tried to drown Lakota's dignity in a glass of Cabernet. Tonight the room felt different. The fear was gone. The air was light. Lakota stood in the dressing room of the master suite upstairs. She stared at herself in the full-length mirror. She had chosen her outfit with the precision of a tactical strike. It was a gown of deep, shimmering crimson velvet. It caught the light like liquid ruby. It was the exact shade of the wine that had ruined her white blouse that night. She was wearing her trauma like armor. "You look dangerous," Liam said from the doorway. Lakota turned. Liam looked dashing in a midnight blue tuxedo, but it was his eyes that had changed the most. The haunted, anxious look of a man constantly waiting for his mother's criticism was gone. He looked settled. "Happy. Dangerous is good," Lakota said, smoothing the fabric. "Are you ready for this, walking back into that room?" Liam walked over and took her hands. "The last time we were there, I walked out with nothing but the shirt on my back and you. It turned out to be the best deal I ever made." "You're charming when you're rich," Lakota teased. "I'm charming because I'm free," he countered. He paused his thumb, tracing her knuckles. "I heard the voicemail. From her." Lakota's smile faded slightly. "I didn't want you to worry about it." "I'm not worried," Liam said, and his voice was startlingly firm. "I used to feel guilty. I used to think I owed her for sacrificing so much to raise me. But I realized she didn't sacrifice anything. She invested in me like I was a stock and she expected a return. You don't owe a lone shark love, Lakota. He kissed her forehead. Let's go downstairs. There are 500 people waiting to see the woman who took down the Queen. The descent into the ballroom was a slow-motion victory lap. When the doors opened, the conversation didn't stop, it shifted. Heads turned, eyes widened. Lakota and Liam descended the grand staircase, hand in hand. The same society elites who had sneered at Lakota 6 months ago, who had whispered, "Gold digger," behind their fans, now practically tripped over themselves to make eye contact. Lakota darling. It was Mrs. van der Hoven, a woman who had once asked Lakota to fetch her a drink, mistaking her for a waitress. "That dress is exquisite. We simply must do lunch. I have a charity initiative that needs your brilliance." Lakota smiled, a shark-like baring of teeth that passed for politeness. "Lovely to see you, Beatrice. Call my office. My assistant handles the smaller accounts." She breezed past, leaving the woman stunned, but smiling, desperate to remain in Lakota's orbit. They moved through the room, a power couple in the truest sense. They weren't just wealthy, they were interesting. They had a story. They were the dragon slayers. But amidst the champagne and the adulation, Lakota felt a pull, a strange gravity. She navigated through the crowd, excusing herself from a conversation with the senator, and walked toward the French doors that led to the balcony. She needed air. She needed to check the perimeter of her victory. She stepped out into the cool October night. The noise of the party faded behind the glass. The city hummed below a grid of lights and ambition. Lakota walked to the stone railing and looked down. The Pierre Hotel entrance was 3 stories below, illuminated by the golden glow of the street lamps. And there she was. It was unmistakably Victoria. She was standing just outside the velvet rope, arguing with the doorman. Even from this distance, Lakota could see the frantic, jerky movements of her hands. Victoria was wearing a fur coat that looked ragged, likely one she had managed to hide from the asset seizure, but beneath it she looked thin. She wasn't the terrifying matriarch anymore. She was just a woman shouting at a bouncer who didn't care who she used to be. As if sensing eyes on her, Victoria stopped arguing. She looked up. For a moment, the world seemed to freeze. Lakota stood on the balcony, bathed in the warm light of the ballroom, draped in crimson velvet, holding a crystal flute of sparkling water. She was high above, untouchable, the queen of the castle. Victoria stood on the cold pavement in the shadows, locked out of the world she had built. Their eyes met. Lakota expected to feel anger. She expected to feel a surge of vindictive triumph. But as she looked at the woman who had made her life hell, all she felt was a profound, quiet indifference. Victoria was small. She was a relic of a time that was over. Victoria raised a hand. It was a pathetic gesture, half a wave, half a plea. Her mouth moved, shouting something that the wind carried away before it could reach the balcony. Liam Please Lakota didn't move. She didn't wave, she didn't scowl, she simply raised her glass. A toast to the past, the gesture said, and to its end. Lakota turned around, her crimson dress swirling around her ankles. She didn't watch Victoria leave. She didn't need to. Victoria Sterling was no longer the protagonist of this story. She wasn't even the villain. She was just background noise. Lakota opened the doors and stepped back into the warmth. Liam was waiting for her near the band. The musicians had just started a slow, jazzy number. He saw her come in, saw the look on her face, a mix of finality and peace, and he knew. "Is she gone?" Liam asked quietly. "She's been gone for a long time," Lakota answered. We just finally stopped looking for her. Liam smiled, a genuine boyish smile that reached his eyes. He extended his hand. Mrs. Vance, I believe this is our song. We don't have a song, Lakota laughed, taking his hand. We do now, he said, pulling her onto the dance floor. As they swayed under the crystal chandeliers, surrounded by the applause of the city's elite, Lakota rested her head on Liam's shoulder. She thought about the instant noodles in the drafty Brooklyn apartment. She thought about the secrets, the fear, and the wine dripping down her face. And then she looked around at the empire she now controlled, not for power, but for protection. She had won. Not because she had the most money, though she did. And not because she was the most ruthless, because she wasn't. She had won because she knew who she was when the bank account was empty, and Victoria Sterling never did. The music swelled, the camera flashed, and Lakota Vance, the invisible titan, finally allowed herself to be seen. And that is how Lakota Vance turned a humiliation into an empire. It's a powerful reminder that you should never judge someone by their cover or by the job they tell you they have. Victoria Sterling learned the hard way that when you try to crush someone, you better make sure they aren't the one holding the deed to your house. In the end, the wine stain washed out, but the karma that stuck forever. It just goes to show the best revenge isn't screaming. It's succeeding so loudly that your enemies have to listen. Wow, what a ride. If you enjoyed this story of massive revenge and instant karma, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and tells me you want more stories like this. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next part of our daily drama series. I've got an even crazier story coming tomorrow about a boss who fired his intern, unaware she was the owner's daughter. You don't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.